If for some reason you wanted to create a game in PowerApps, you'll have to familiarize yourself with the timer. Kitty Run uses 3 timers. The first 2 are fairly obvious. Every jumping action is a timed event from beginning to end. The Invincible mode is also another timed event. More subtly, there's a timer that runs throughout the entire course of the game and can be seen most obviously in the game's clock. The timers are bound by a duration. However, this is an endless runner, so the clock has to run endlessly. How we achieve that will be explained in this video. Let's view the default timer. The timer is very straightforward. Select, and the timer will start counting up towards duration. Select again, and it will pause. And the next selection will start, pause, and so on. Simplification, let's name this game timer. Let's set the duration to 500. Duration units are in milliseconds. And let's change its display from its value converted to hours, minutes, and seconds to just simply its value. Let's throw in a quick visual just to visualize the function of the timer. We're going to clone that back rectangle and anchor it to, we're going to change the color on this front rectangle and anchor it to the back rectangle. And let's change the width to the back bar's width multiplied by the ratio of the timer's value to its duration. And a nice visual of the timer's function. Now let's look at the repeat property of the timer control. And by default it's set to false, but let's set it to true. So now when it's set to true, the timer is going to run from beginning to end in a cycle. Now let's look at when the actions can be fired from the timer. You can shoot actions on select, which works just like if the timer was a button. You can set an action to fire on the start of the timer and on the timer's end, which is after the full duration. So let's use the on timer end to fire up and iterate a variable. We'll throw in 2 labels. And now with each cycle, we have a counter that's going to count upwards. So by setting the repeat property to true for the timer and iterating with the end of each timer duration, we're able to create our endless timer, which will count up until the end of the application. Now, one question that may come up is, why bother doing that when we can just simply have one timer that runs from beginning of the application to the end? One of the reasons is because a natural limit of the timer is the duration. However, you could set the timer up to an hour or beyond, and who's to say anyone would play the game longer than that? But the other reason that we're using a cycling of timers is because of the onTimerEnd property. So with the onTimerEnd property, we're able to fire an action at equal intervals throughout the entire run of the timer and essentially endlessly until the application ends. Let's take a second and let's convert this to seconds. And you may not want to directly interact with your timer. So typically you would just toggle this visibility to false, but let's, for illustration purposes, add a rectangle over it just to disable direct interaction. Now we'll create some buttons to update the timer to start and pause and reset it. So first, on the timer's start property, let's create a variable. We're going to put on the start button, update context for the start variable to be false, and then update context for the start variable to be true. The reason we're doing this is because even though we can set the start variable to be true, other things can interfere with the timer, and the timer can pause manually by accident through some means, while the start variable is still set to true. So in order to do that, we'll do a hard reset by setting the start variable to false and then moving it to true. Pausing is just going to be a simple start variable false, and reset, we're going to update that timer count variable. and then start up the timer again. Now let's tie a rectangle to motion based on the timer's function. So I'm going to add another rectangle. And just so you can see where I'm going with this, I'll call this platform. And on the on timer end, we're going to go ahead and add a variable that will update, that will tie directly to the X position of the platform. Okay, and now we have motion on the platform tied to our counter. But now it's moving off screen, and it won't come back because each cycle of the counter is going to iterate it, moving to the negative X direction. So instead, what we'll have to do is we'll add one more conditional to this. And also, let's shorten that duration. So now we have a platform that will endlessly cycle across the screen. So, we've touched upon the concepts that allow the world of Kitty Run to move. So the platforms and the backgrounds are based off of movement using that similar method. And in addition, the timer controls that we just went over are behind the mechanism that is used to create the pause, start, and reset buttons in this game. In the future videos, we'll cover in more detail how the sense of depth was created with the parallax scrolling, as well as the variety in the platform levels. If you like this video and are interested in the development of Kitty Run, then please take some time to like this channel. In addition, Kitty Run is up for the Demo Extravaganza 2021 for PowerApps, so please visit the site in the links and give this game a kudos to help make it to the finals. Well, until next time, we'll see you in the next tutorial.